Hello, in this video you'll learn how to use certain default types in PostgreSQL, something that is native to the database, but something that also maps very well with certain types of C#, for example, arrays, and a few other things we'll cover as well. Now, we are building on top of the previous episode in these series, getting started essentially with PostgreSQL, and we'll go to some more extreme parts of it later on, such as vectors and things of that nature. But in the previous one, we covered JSON-B columns. So for complex structures, it's great. And we also use, as you can see right here, we have tags. We also use JSON-B columns for tags. Now, as I mentioned previously in the previous video, it's probably not necessary to have tags as JSON-B column. Now, anything more complex, you would want that, but there are actually arrays directly straight inside the PostgreSQL. It's not some wrapper, it's not something like that. It's there, it does exist, and it matches and maps perfectly to a list. Well, a list not really, but to an array or to a list. You can simply convert that quite easily. But we'll add a few more things here, a few more properties, and then we'll add another migration. Now, if you want to catch up with the JSON columns and some of that stuff, watch the previous video. And if you want to get started with a setup, how migration works and all those things, watch the first video in the series. But now let's get started and let's add the first property, the first table column here in the product. Let's expand it a bit. So first one, let's do a simple one, one of the simpler ones at least from all this arrangement for this video. Let's do sizes as an array. So let's simply do, let's leave a little space here and let's do string array like that. And let's call it sizes. So a simple property here. We don't need that sort of an arrangement here. We can probably just do something more like this. If we can actually do that properly, like that. And, well, let's stick to that. Doesn't matter. We won't need defaults actually on this or anything of that nature, so we can just do this. Or you can leave it empty. Really doesn't matter. Again, what default you set, it will be just in your code. If you want to map it properly, you'll need to go to DB context. But in this case, we'll try to sort of map some properties of the column to this property. A bit different one and a bit more useful one. So let's go here, just like in the previous videos, we'll have this. And actually, we'll take this and we'll copy down a bit. And then we will take size. So in the previous video, you've seen that index gin, GIN. We used it for JSON-B, but you can also use that indexing method for the arrays. So for the JSON-B schemas and for the arrays as well. Very straightforward arrangement, but you do need those indexes when you have all these sort of tables inside a table, if you will, right? So JSON is a structure, but it is in a column, which is in a table, which is a structure on its own. So you kind of need that additional indexing for sure, just so you don't make it slower. Now, usually you probably won't search inside it, or you'll search first off the top, but we'll get to the performance in the later videos. Should be quite interesting. Now, the next one we can set, and this won't require real sort of setup here, at least not too much. We can do, let's say, a little date right here, a period. So it's not just going to be a simple date, it's going to be a range, which is very useful because in some other databases, you would have to store a date just as a simple sort of from one to the other, right? So starting date and end date, or start date, end date, two different properties, two different columns. But Postgres offers a simple solution to that. It's called NPG SQL range. So let's add that one up below rather the size to public, and it's called MPG let's see if I can type it properly, PGSQL range. That's gonna be, yeah, range. So that's gonna be a range of values, and as you can see from the suggestion, actually quite interesting, it could be other types as well. So we could say available stock range, but we'll make it something more perhaps realistic, and let's do date time, which is probably a very sort of frequent use case. There's certainly many use cases, not just this of promotion period, which we'll make here, say promotion period. Now it could be events, right? The calendars and all those things, a very useful structural piece. So this range will be from to rather. We'll get into queries and how it's all gets set up. It's quite interesting. But as far as that goes, there's really not much else to kind of add to it. It's really more about that final use cases, which you will see later in the video, how we set it and then how we use it and how we read it. It's quite straightforward as well. It is just essentially a range type of a certain type. So it could be datetime, it could be integers, as you saw, all kinds of use cases for it. Now then, let's move on to the third one, which will actually require a bit of change in the program.cs, the actual setup to the context injections. It will be a bit more complicated, but still quite straightforward. So the third one is already pre-inserted, just to save time and to have a more decent example. We have product category, and the type will actually be enum. Now, it is straightforward setup, as you will see, but there's something important to remember when using this particular one. So we have the enum, as you would. Usually, in the past, in some other databases, you would map it probably as an integer and map it in the code, but that could get lost. Here, it's kind of a bit more straightforward and perhaps easier to follow, and for the database to work as well. The code gets cleaner, so it's all great in that sort of regard. So let's do it like this. Let's do public and product category. Let's see if we can do that. Product category, category. So that's all easy and good, but there is one additional thing that you must do. Now, it won't sort of be able to, let's say, directly map it. However, the main part is not actually in the AppDB context like with all this other stuff. Like here, where for the metadata we set JSONB structure. For obvious for other stuff, it sort of maps automatically, and we have just has index. We add index, not too much. We actually for this one need to make a little change in the program.cs. So in the previous video, we already created this data source builder, so we can add sort of different options to the actual connection and what's allowed and what's not allowed, and essentially the whole setup. We added enable dynamic JSON. This is to support JSON. So now we need to actually add sort of support for enums. It's not exactly just adding support, it's in fact mapping the enum. So let's do map enum like that. And then it's going to be product category. And then we have this. And then we can do a little option here. Let's see, product category, map enum, PG name. So that's going to be the name that's used for the actual table category mapping, the table column name. As such. This is very important. Without this, it won't accept it. It will throw errors. It's not going to be good. So you need data source builder, map enum. Other than that, nothing in AppDB context. If you want an enum, you just need an enum, and you need category, or whatever it's called, in your model. And of course, after this, I'm not going to get into that in this video again, but we will need to run add migration, and then in this code it gets automatically applied via code, or you update the others different probably steps in build or publishing or whatever it is. So we'll probably get to that sometime later in these series on how you can do some of the pipeline work. But this is how it gets set up. Now let's take a look at how to use it, how to query all these different pieces. Before we start with actual queries, something to point out. This isn't exactly database related itself, but we need to configure JSON options for the mapping of the actual inserting data, because here in product we have this product category as enum. By default it's integer, so we want to map it as a string essentially, so it works properly when we insert. And we do have a little example here. This is just the project.htp file essentially. We have this example, and where do we have this? We have category right here. It's we send it as string, and for API purposes, usually if you want to make public API, it's better to do it this way. It's more user friendly. Of course, you want to list all the options as well. Most people make that mistake, but this is not about APIs, this is about databases. So now let's move on to a couple of examples on querying this data here. We have map get from the previous ones. We have a sort of minimal API arrangement. If you want to learn more about those, watch the video on this channel. And we have about security, and we have one about so data validations, which is the newest feature in the minimal APIs, and they have been available for quite some time. But essentially, there's not much to it. We inject the DB context and we provide some data. In this case, let's start with perhaps something like arrays, just so it's a bit more interesting. Or perhaps we should actually do a category first, because that can get a bit troublesome, because again, there's text, there's integers, and then there's the actual thing, the enum. So let's do a little map get right here. Let's see if we can do a proper one without any suggestions here, so it's not too confusing. And let's say products, then category, and let's provide the category as an extension. Or we can take the suggestion. There's no need to waste time sometimes with these things. If you see it's right, it's better to correct it rather than waste time remembering all the little syntax pieces. So we have a product category now. That's great, and that, as you can see, comes as an enum, right? And we have our DB context, so you can make it go through as an enum, as a category. That should work perfectly fine as long as your API supports. Now again, this is all just API part. What we care about is this part, and this doesn't really change that much. It's just simple LINQ. And it's more LINQ than actual EF call when you think about SQL Server, because usually you have to do mapping with that stuff. It doesn't quite provide as much support perhaps for these sort of variety of types as Postgres provides. So we can simply match category to category, and then to list sync. We talked about that in the first video. Watch that, it's quite important when you do to list sync, and when you do quite important as well as no tracking for better performance. So some important things to remember there as well. But this is essentially, again, very straightforward thing. If we go, for example, to sizes, nothing too difficult there as well. We can provide, let's do a little thing on sizes here, which is our array. We can do app, and in this case, so we will have to do something a bit different actually in the API. We will have to do map post, because we need to provide a little string. Let's just do like this, not the metadata. That was the previous video. We don't want that suggestion anymore. We're done with that. If you haven't watched it, please do. It's quite interesting. It's JSON in a database, very, very useful. So let's just do, let's say, sizes that has any of the sizes that user has selected. So sizes any. And as you can probably guess, let's do this. It'll be easier. And let's get rid of, oh, actually, let's not get rid of it. It's not going to be size string. It's actually going to be an array of sizes. That's why we need the body, because it will gonna come from the body, essentially. That's the whole point. So sizes is what we want to have here. And then we will filter by any size, like this. Very simple, very straightforward. Do we actually need this? Yeah, we do. Okay, so this needs to be from post because we want it in the body, and it's going to come from the body, essentially. Again, that's API stuff, nothing to worry about when it comes to databases. It could come from anywhere. It could come from RabbitMQ or from your Redis cache, perhaps. Probably not, but RabbitMQ is more likely. There is a video on that. It's very easy to set up, same as PostgreSQL. You can do it via Docker, simple installation, even on Windows. Very easy to set up, and you don't have to add additional things like the Kafkas and all those other arrangements. So just install it on Docker and you're good to go for your testing environment, and well, similar to production as well. There's a great video on that. Take a look at that. Now we have products, where, size, again, anything EF_car, essentially. Again, more like even LINQ, because we do get all those sort of additional benefits here. And sizes contain, sizes any. That's perfect. That's it. That's great. So again, there is absolutely no difference here. The only thing is that's sort of a bit more different is the range. Now you need some kind of a range type in order to even have range. We'll need something to post as range. So let's create a little range record here, just so it's very visible and sort of very straightforward. And as you can see, we're not doing any mapping really. Usually we'll probably do a bit of mapping. There is actually a video on that as well on this channel. We compare some options because AutoMapper isn't really a thing for most people these days. But those do exist, so take a look at that. But let's say date time, day 2. Or rather, not start time, date from, date to, because we are looking at promotional periods, so that would be more like from and to. So now we have this date range. Again, this has nothing to do with the database. This is just part of where the actual query input comes from. And then we do map post again, because we need that body, and that is not what we need here. Let's say products, again, beautiful mapping, promotion, and let's do, in this case, something a bit more interesting, promotion, say overlap. If you have more filters, you kind of need to separate. Of course, we're not doing that here, but let's actually delete this like that. So we'll do something a bit more interesting. And also in the previous examples, we've been doing a little variable here. You certainly don't need this, but of course, sometimes it can be good if you want to put a breakpoint and check what you're actually getting here if you're having some problems. But you can actually do this directly. We'll try this here. But we take the date range as a query, and we'll need to filter it out somehow, but we're taking this date range as a query because it's better to take it like this, and usually that's how it will work. But the actual product type is this MPG SQL range, right? So we need to somehow map it or convert it, so we can simply just do range and then new, and then MPG SQL range, date time, like this, I believe, and date range 2, like that, if I'm not mistaken. Let's see. And we also would like to do to universal time. That's what's gonna make it a bit better. We still have a little error. Let's see, typo namespace could not be found. Yeah, of course it couldn't be found because we don't have the using. That would never work. So after this, we have a little range, and then we can query, and we can just do it directly. We actually have we can do this as well. Let's say db context. Where is it? DB context, and then products, and then again where, just like the previous videos, just like the previous examples. It all starts with where. Oh, not necessarily, of course, but also we can do as no tracking, and then where. That's better for performance. Again, watch the first video. We kind of get into that a bit more, well, quite a bit more deeply in all the performance things and how you can apply values and how you can't apply values and saving and all that, updates, save, deletes, and all those different things as well. So let's do this, say P promotional period. Let's just take this example. There's not much to see here. Essentially, the point is that we set this as a product property, in turn table column, right? MPG SQL range. That's the range. That's the native thing in the database, and then we can use P promotional period. From the range we can use value, and from the value we have this very useful thing, overlaps. So you can actually check if the whole range overlaps with that promotional period. Of course, we first check because it's a nullable. We check if it even exists. If it's no promotional period, then we don't take that. And if it does, we check if it is actually in that particular range, and that is a very useful part of this whole thing, the overlaps. So you don't have to do all those checks, the logical things, less or more, because let's be honest, with dates it can be quite tricky and it's very easy to make mistakes. So this overlaps is the useful feature. And again, you can use all these things, quite simple to do. For arrays, you'll need some indexing, very useful thing to have, never miss it. There's no reason to miss it, really. Another thing is product category, the enum, of course, getting back to the top here in the program.cs, in the data source builder, MPG SQL data source builder. We have a connection string. For JSON, we have dynamic JSON. For mapping enums, we need to map them right here and name them something. So that setup is important. Everything else, the date range, that's just the type. You can set it and forget it. And that said, we will conclude this video.